Earlier this year, I began the 88th Armory with the idea of adding some variety to my, and maybe some viewers' arsenals by looking at weapon and Warframe builds that can work for the mid-game, where we play a lot of Warframe's experience and see what might make it into or close to the endgame. What I found in doing this was that I want to put everything on the table. Warframe is a game most often played in the mid-tier of its difficulty. This means facing enemies that are somewhere from 25 to 45 in level, give or take 5 levels. But what I found in attempting to point out in some of these weapons and builds that I enjoy in my mid-game play was that there are tons more to be had than even I thought. What we're looking for here is more variety, more fun in our Warframe experience. I still want to focus on more weapons, builds, and combinations for the mid-tier of the game where we often have a lot of our play, but I want to put all options on the table to find these elements of enjoyment through diversity, which is a lot of what Warframe has to offer. I'm Scott from Ramble Entertainment, and this is the new version of Season 1 of the 88th Armory. Let's find our fun, let's find our variety. So today, same day I recorded the episode yesterday, but for you today, it's a late night of recording because I'm picking up a lot of shifts, so I want to make sure I have all of the footage to cut and edit for you guys for this week for the 88th. I'm going to be looking at some new ways to record these so that even if I pick up shifts, there will be episodes recorded and ready to post, as opposed to this kind of last-minute style I've been unfortunately forcing myself into. Either way, today on the 88th Armory, what we want to look at is Wukong the Undying and Explosive. Basically, Wukong is another one of these frames that can afford to take explosive weapons so long as you are quick and ready to equip Defy. I think this isn't as easy to point to and say, oh, use explosives with it, as, say, an Assimilate Nyx, because Wukong kind of walks this finer line, whether it's even a regular build with him or not, a build like this that focuses entirely on Defy. He walks kind of just this complex, complicated line in his builds, but with this build we focus entirely on Defy, and it affords us a few opportunities, maybe even 4 or 5 opportunities to avoid killing ourselves with explosives, and you'll see a few of those here in the background footage as we kind of introduce all of this. Basically, what you want to make sure you're keeping on yourself is not 2 explosive weapons with Wukong, but 1 explosive weapon and another weapon when you don't have that energy pool to rely on to remain in Defy, or if you just don't have enough energy left to continue to survive. Defy is quite complex in how it works. I think that before we see a Wukong Prime, or even with a Wukong Deluxe skin, or just at some point I think Wukong could use a bit of TLC to make a lot of his moves more simplistic, because you look at I look at the very least a lot of his moves, and they're pretty complex for what they give you. It's not that they don't give you a lot, it's just that I think that comparatively, when you look at how some other frames are, you might get more out of them with a lot more simplicity to them. So I think that those would be great ideas to approach Wukong with, if he ever gets a bit of a tweak, a bit of a rework, if you will. Either way, let's go ahead and start taking a look at some of these builds for our explosive Undying Monkey King. So we've already looked at the Kulstar with Nyx, we've looked at the Penta, and even the Ogris before. If you want either of those, here are the links to both of those videos where I looked at all three of those weapons between the two. And of course, if Riven mods come up, I do intend to look at those again and move the ball along with more frames that can kind of handle explosives in different ways. I even have another frame for next week, but right now, let's look at our builds and move through them pretty quickly. So here we have our Kulstar, nothing out of the ordinary. Pure damage, some extra status, if you want to get a viral or corrosive proc, really, to help you get some more TTK on the Kulstar with those cluster bombs it emits, so if the first explosion doesn't kill them, the second probably will. And then we have our Penta, so here is the Penta, and the thing that I've highlighted in the next video about the Penta is I use Firestorm to disperse all of this massive damage because it's already doing so much damage. We don't need more damage, we can stand to spread out that damage a bit more. It's a personal choice, really. I think the mod, if or when I get a Riven mod, it's late. If or when I get a Riven mod, Terminal Velocity is probably the one I'm going to replace. Still going to hold on to Firestorm, as Riven mods do not expand areas of effect. Not yet, anyway. Maybe. That'd be a nice dream to have in the future. So yeah, nothing too out of the ordinary with either of these builds. So let's go ahead and take a look at Wukong, our Undying. Wukong, basically, this is a build that entirely focuses on Defy. You have your duration, of course, and then between Streamline and Fleeting Expertise. I don't recommend using a max. I don't recommend using a max Fleeting Expertise because it will take too much away from our duration, which duration is used for our efficiency, as well as the amount of time you are invincible as Wukong, and that's important too. One of the easiest kind of swap betweens, one of the easiest choices in this build is between Rage and Natural Talent. I personally lean more towards Natural Talent. I used it in the opening footage. I'm using Natural Talent in this footage here, so, okay, danger close. Instantly put Defy on, and then blow shit up. Rage returns energy to you. However, in my testing, it doesn't seem to apply to self-damage, so you don't really get energy back from self-damage, it seems. I might be wrong on that. That might be a glitch of the simulacrum, but either way, I think that either of those are a fine choice. And then, of course, one of the other slight oddities we have for this build is the Endurance Drift. Endurance Drift allows us to have a larger energy pool to draw from, which means we can stay in Defy longer or get more utilization out of Defy for Wukong the Undying, the Defiant. Hell yeah. So, with all that in mind, let's go ahead and look at Wukong the Undying, talk about the positives and negatives, and I don't really think there's a Riven dream to this one. The Penta, I think, is going to be one of those weapons that will get a lot of benefits. I think, well, let's talk about that in the next segment. All right. So as I was saying about potential things for the Penta, I would love to see potential Rivens for the Penta. I would love to see a flight speed Riven. However, really, I think I would prefer to focus on status, multi-shot, damage. I want to say crit is in there, but for the Penta to really achieve crit, you kind of have to go somewhere near about 250% to make it viable as crit, because I think it's a 5% crit chance with a 2 times crit multiplier, and if that's true, then yeah, you would need about 250% crit chance to land near 25% crit chance, which even then is a bit tough to get to, to want to justify. And I think that I have seen at like a 300% crit chance Torrid Riven mod, if I'm not mistaken, on PC. So it could be possible, although the Torrid has a strong Riven affinity, or whatever it's called. We'll see. We'll see when we get there with what we get. And either way, it will be pretty interesting to see how that turns out. I don't think flight speed is mandatory, but I think that is kind of one of the easier mods to want to replace for a Riven mod. Of course, then we'll have to put more Forma into the Penta. Either way, what we're here to really look at is another kind of defiant, undying Wukong, and there really isn't much more to say about it than to highlight the positives and the negatives. So let's go ahead and watch our in-game footage, and then we'll go ahead and move on to talk about positives and negatives after that. So in wrapping up with another one of our explosive experts, Wukong, the Undying, the Defiant, I think a lot of this comes down to what you're trading off. Nyx, when you're going explosives with a Nyx Assimilate, basically what you're ending up stuck in is this immobile, but yes, super powerful, super advantageous for explosives kind of ability. Wukong is a lot more mobile, but also complicated in the way he stays alive. He's not Rhino, he's not Nezha. In fact, he's kind of even more survivable than the two of them because of the way his Defy works, even though it's super complicated, where, okay, you almost died, you got some health back, but now you lost this big chunk of your energy. It's weird, but yet somehow, clearly, it works. Now, I'll be completely honest, in testing, it didn't always work. Sometimes shit would happen, and obviously, as I've stated in all of the videos with explosives, you're bound to blow yourself up. But this stuff happens, and having more access to these extremely powerful self-damaging weapons, having more ways to access them is, I think, awesome. Having more variety in our gameplay and returning to explosives. Explosives are always fun. But yeah, the Defy build is super complicated. You don't get as much out of it as you will with, say, Nyx, where she can still use Chaos, she can still mind control, whereas Wukong, you're pretty much defying. Now, one thing I didn't demonstrate here is the ability to utilize Cloud Walk. You're always going to be relying on Zenuric, I think, with a style like this. You always want to have that energy gain. Cloud Walk, if you're not, say, defending, like I am here, affords you the opportunity to become undetectable and still benefit from the gains of Zenuric's 4 energy per second. Obviously, I didn't change the polarity on Wukong. I would not change the polarity on Wukong to get more energy with Energy Siphon or go with Corrosive Projection. Instead, what I did here was I added Pistol Lamp, which I didn't even highlight on the builds video. I added Pistol Lamp to add even more damage with my Kulstar. So Wukong does have advantages where Nyx doesn't, but you become more limited when you focus on Defy. You basically Cloud Walk for safety, you Defy for safety. You can't use explosives in Cloud Walk, you can't do much in Cloud Walk. And that's not to also discredit the ability to just equip Primal Fury, the staff, Wukong's exalted staff, basically, because it still benefits from melee mods. So there are still advantages there too. It's just when you're doing this build, there's a lot of concentration on what you're doing. Basically, okay, I'm gonna blow stuff up now. I gotta make sure Defy is on. Okay, Defy is draining away my energy. I gotta make sure I'm swapping weapons. One mistake, and you're basically dead, whereas Nyx, you can't really make mistakes. It's a lot easier to function with her, and I think we're going to look at some other builds where you're capable of functioning, but functioning a lot more, but more limited to the space you can move within. Things like that, kind of like Vauban. Vauban, the Hallway Hero Explosives expert Vauban, has a limited area with which he can function within, so you don't want to be moving about the field too much and accidentally blow yourself up. Wukong allows us that mobility with the explosives, and of course, a lot of his power comes from the explosives, and that's super fun. As I pointed out, I love blowing shit up, and to be able to do that again in Warframe, to find these things, is very enjoyable. And I hope you guys enjoy it, and I hope maybe this has you dusting off Wukong, or even the Kulstar, and giving them another shot and adding them back into your arsenal if you took them out or have neglected them for a long time, like I have. And I certainly look forward to using this more, even though it's a bit complex, and you should definitely have some brain capacity ready to make sure you are executing it properly. Either way, I hope you guys like what we had to show off here. If you did, do the thing, and I will be back next week with more of the 88th Armory. I was thinking about a state of the frame this week. I'm still leaning towards that. I was going to do a two-part save of the frame. I might do the first part this week because of the limitation on time that I have now, and then do a second part next week. And then the week of Christmas, since that's my birthday, I'm going to take that off. But in taking that off, I'm not going to upload videos, but what I will probably do is I think I'm going to start getting ahead of myself going into January. I'm going to have episodes prepared in advance. So we'll see how that works out. And yeah, still not sure when the season's going to end. I think there will just come a point where it'll just kind of be time. I will obviously announce that, and I will make videos to make that obvious, and then I will also make videos to show when I am coming back, and we'll talk about that more later. So, again, hope you guys enjoy some Wukong, Kulstar, Penta, Ogris action if you're interested, and we'll see you next time. Happy Tenno Bomb!